Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Talking with David Epstein, the author of The Sports Gene, Inside the Science of Extraordinary Athletic Performance. And David, you said before during commercial that you encountered some trouble with some scientists you were talking to. People didn't want to go maybe on the record with certain things because they were afraid of being accused of being racist or losing their job or getting in trouble. Like, explain that. What happened?
Not on the record. So, like, one example was I was at the American College of Sports Medicine, which is like the biggest meeting of physiologists in the world in San Francisco. They're meeting, and there was a head of a kinesiology department at like a major American research university who told me, he sort of said, you know, I have data on ethnic differences, but I'm not publishing it.
And bye.
and so his data was about the response of exercisers to a dietary supplement, right? But his concern was that if he published it, that acknowledging ethnic differences would somehow lead to people saying that he was supporting innate intellectual differences, as if the two had anything to do with one another.
Okay, here's the question, exactly. It doesn't make any sense, you're right. But what about the intellectual side? Is there something to saying, okay, just going by the stereotypes, like, is there a reason? Is it even true that Asian people are better at math? Or a certain group of people are more creative than another group? Another group of people are better, with I don't know, designing something or architecture. Is there any...
Or is there, or as it pertains to sports, is there an inverse relationship between athleticism and intelligence?
Right, or with certain a real racial thing for years was that a black man could never be a quarterback because of the intellectual side, or be a manager. We go back to what Al Campana said in 1987 on Nightline. He goes, "I don't think blacks have the mental capacity," and one of the stupidest and dumbest, and some has been proven wrong a million times over again. But is there something to other things intellectually that stuff like this could lead to?
Okay, the main answer is that it's beyond the scope of my book, and I don't know, actually.
Right.
So I did like really
That's the best answer you could give, right? I mean,
but to that question about whether there's sort of an inverse relationship between athletic prowess and intellectual prowess, that I did look into a little bit in the book, and that there is no evidence that that's the case. And in fact, that wasn't even an idea until athletic prowess became associated with African Americans around the time of Jesse Owens. So that was very much a result of bigotry, not a cause of it.
Well, you got to think about the Jesse Owens situation, because Hitler's big thing was creating the master race, which meant athletically, intellectually, and it had nothing to do with being black. It was all about the white, blonde hair, blue-eyed. So those 36 Olympics was very much like, wow, you're fighting for a lot there.
I mean, I looked at some like ancient, Greek texts. Greek texts,
you go back to the classical,
right.
and it's mind and body both need to be sharpened.
And it would
together.
be like sometimes considered a sign of being like closer to the gods if someone was like athletically fit. So it was really just very
fit
much when
and brilliant. And I don't know. I think that I always felt like that perception of athletic can't go together with smart, because more often than not, the guys who are athletic end up letting some of the schoolwork slide. But I'm
talking about natural intelligence a person has. Like you're talking about, not learning stuff and gaining knowledge. I'm talking about the ability to gain knowledge, what you're born with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What I can tell you is in one of the studies I talk about in the book that's tracked the best like soccer players in the Netherlands. The Netherlands they were in the World Cup finals the last time around. It tracks these players since they were 12. They found that there's a ton of transfer from skills that they bring to sports, like what's called self-regulatory behavior, which is their ability to have discipline, to question why they're doing certain things, to work on their weaknesses instead of just focusing on their strengths, and they actually end up being much better than average students. So that could be, again, a learned sort of learning how to learn
only in
skill,
the Netherlands?
Well, that's just the place they did the most rigorous study. I would imagine it applies in other places.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I know a lot of guys who always said they got better grades during football season because they had to be more regimented and disciplined.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the time football took away from it. It was just the mindset they were in was more adhered.
It's because you had less time and you had to, just plan your day out and, pull all-nighters at times. If you wanted to avoid that, you had to, do proactive pre-planning, do a little more disciplined approach.
Well, Dave, do you think, is there a way, from what your research from this book, can you take away anything where someone could actually, based on environment, background, race, everything, where they're from. Is it possible to like build an athlete, a perfect athlete from birth? If you think anybody ever try to do that and say, like, this is the perfect atmosphere?
Are we getting to the point where we can manipulate the genome?
And do the Cubs
with
know
this
about it as an
information?
organization?
Yeah.
Clearly not. Right? And I'm sure they'll be the last to adopt it.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to a scary area. But I mean, do you think that's a possibility? Could you do that?
With gene manipulation, you mean?
Right.
Could you
come within like? Could you guarantee me within like 80% that this will be a good athlete I'm building here?
So the fact is, we still don't know what most genes do. Period. Sports even aside, but there are 2 chapters in the book that focus on single genes. It's very rare that a single gene has a big effect. Usually, they just have tiny effects. But there are 2 genes in there where a single rare version of a gene causes like a major change to athleticism. One of them was found in this German kid that's been dubbed super baby, where he's basically missing the muscle stop sign, so he just had this like explosive muscle growth.
Wow.
And this
how old is he now?
Now I think he's about let's see, this was first 2003. He must be like about 12 or something like that now.
So even before there was significant testosterone in his system, he was building.
He was identified in the nursery at the hospital because his like quads and his butt were like taut.
Really?
And then they tracked it to the same mutation that's found in these cattle called Belgian Blues that are like massive and racing whippets. It's found in them. And his mother,
is he muscle bound as a 12-year-old?
Well, you gotta see. It's funny you brought this up. It's such a coincidence. Over the weekend, I was looking through new movies on DirecTV's On Demand. Brilliant, by the way. And I saw a Pain and Gain, this new Mark Wahlberg movie, which is based on a true story. And I in the beginning, there's a kid who plays Mark Wahlberg as like a 10 or 11-year-old kid, and you got to see this kid. I don't know if it was special effects they used or something. Maybe it's this kid you're talking about because he looks like a bodybuilder at 11 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's odd looking, but maybe he's the guy.
I mean, this kid,
I always thought you had to have testosterone. I always thought you had to be like.
Let's take we got to take a break. I'm sorry, but I want to come back and see if you can Google that Pain and Gain in the beginning. Maybe you can find
This is fascinating stuff.
Back with more of the Artie Lange Show. David, I'm sorry. One of the worst things about doing the show is I never have enough time, man. But this is a fascinating thing.
Sure is.
And we got a band coming and stuff. Try to come back when you can.
I'd come back anytime.
Yeah, just try to have David on soon. Maybe next week or something. We'll try to take more time. But the book is The Sports Gene. David Epstein, and again, Inside the Science of Extraordinary Athletic Performance. It'll bring up a lot of great questions too in your mind, and
I can't wait to read it.
And absolutely, and it's been on the New York Times bestsellers list now for
a month.
That's pretty cool. Now, Mike, me and you are 2 people who chose not to develop mind or body, and have completely squandered both. Do you feel after David's appearance, do you feel at all embarrassed?
Yes, Dave. Thank you for calling us out, David. Thanks.
No problem.
In the name of the poor workers who had to, get in good shape to sew that enormous shirt together. Well, again, The Sports Gene, David Epstein. Thanks, man, and we'll see you soon, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
We'll be back with, how about this? Papa Chubby, the Artie Lange Show.